right. Hello. Good day, everyone. Welcome to another week of Just Gay Stuff podcast. My name is Jess.
And I'm Lauren. I was not ready for the good day.
The good day. I thought I'd change it up. I feel like we say the same thing every week, so I thought a change up might be a little bit nice.
Okay.
Well, this week we have another exciting interview.
We do. I love when we have guests on the show.
I feel like so far this year we've really dove into some educational things over the last couple of months, and that's not really about to stop. But today we have the absolute pleasure of introducing Zoe Wilson, who is the chairperson of Sunshine Queer Collective, and they're going to tell us all about their position there, the Sunshine Coast Queer Ball, what they do, and take us through a bit of their own journey. So welcome, Zoe.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. As we said, we love having guests,
Yeah.
and you never know what you're going to get each time. There's always some camaraderie, so
Plus,
we can't
I feel
wait.
like we've made a lot of friends throughout doing this.
Absolutely,
So, yeah.
absolutely. So Zoe, you are the chairperson of Sunshine Queer Collective. Why don't you start by telling us what that is and how you came to be a part of it?
So originally I started like a Facebook social group for my area. You know, we do have quite a few social groups around on the Sunshine Coast, which is amazing. But at the time they were on different platforms like Meetup, which I didn't find super interactive for my age level.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started a Facebook group, which was just a few friends that we got together, and that started growing quite exponentially. So it's like a lesbian and trans people social group, and it's quite active, and we host events all the time. And they were like smaller events, you know, like beach walks, hanging out at cafes, those kind of things. And I was talking to my friends and we just wanted to expand into some larger events, you know, things that would actually take further planning. And so that's where we came up with the Sunshine Queer Collective, with a mind to expand into larger events and try to, you know, bring the community together. Because on the Sunshine Coast, we don't have the clubs and the bars and things like that where we can all easily find each other. We're all in groups, and there are so many people that don't even know the groups that are out there.
Yeah.
They might be trans people and they don't realize that there is this trans group and that trans group. And yeah, we just really wanted to get the information out there so that people could, you know, come together and find each other.
Yeah, and connection is everything, right? Especially when you're in not even just the queer space, in whatever
Just
space.
in general.
Yeah, you might feel isolated for a myriad of different reasons. And if you can find community, that helps so much. Do you not even have one gay club on the coast?
No,
Wow.
we had one queer cafe, and unfortunately that is just about to close its doors. So
no.
that was amazing. They were holding some nighttime events there as well. So we would have like queer open mic nights, and we absolutely loved it. But, you know, in this economy, it's really difficult. So we are about to lose that.
Damn.
Yeah.
At least the great thing is that you and your friendship group have started this queer collective. So you guys are able to create those safe spaces and that community whilst the other places are closing down anyways.
Yeah, and that's what we have to do. We basically have to bring the community where we go. We just have to find places that are not necessarily queer dedicated, but that are, you know, accepting and welcoming, and then just bring the gay wherever we go.
Yeah,
I love that. Bring the gay.
Yeah, I was literally just about to ask that. Is there space for already established venues to have queer events where you are, or is it still kind of a hurdle to get those things happening?
Look, we have got some really good support, like the Banana Bender pub where we hold the queer ball. Mardi Gras is there, and for a while there we were holding, you know, monthly meets there, and we do like fortnightly queer bachata classes there. So they're really, really great for us. They're really accepting, welcoming, and happy to do whatever we want. I mean, like I've not really come across any barriers yet with going to certain venues and things like that, but there is, you probably feel it yourself, like there's a massive difference between like, oh yeah, we don't mind, we'd love to take your money, and we love you guys, you know, like there is a massive difference.
Definitely. It's tolerance versus acceptance.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of events, you ran the first ever Sunshine Coast Queer Ball last year. How was the planning with that, and how did it all go?
That was intense. I had never organised an event to that scale before, so I was having to learn everything from the ground up. And it was quite difficult to like separate it and only dedicate certain time to it, because it was a passion project of mine, and it was a little bit consuming because I wanted it to go well. And like, it was also difficult because it had never happened before to accurately convey what the event was, because some people are looking at the formal nature of it and getting a little bit freaked out that it was going to be, there was a lot of expectation or stuffiness. And we're like, no, it's actually a silly time. Like we're just trying to get together and have a ridiculous good time as queer people do. And the dress code was an invitation and not prescriptive. So I spoke to people and they'd be like, oh, I don't dress up. I'm like, that's what it's for though.
Yeah.
Like if you're that kind of person that goes to a wedding and is like, I hate weddings because I just want to wear my Converse and my board shorts, this is the event for you, because you get to go to a formal event and have a great time and be completely accepted in whatever you're wearing. And our mate Lee had like a tuxedo top and board shorts on the bottom. And I was like, yes,
I love
that's the
that.
spirit.
Yeah. That's like being on a cruise on land.
Yeah.
No one
Yeah.
cares what you're wearing. You're just there for a good time and everyone's there for the same reasons. Great.
That's true.
Yeah, it was really good to see like the different interpretations of that. Some people were in their ball gowns and their suits, and other people were, the Mardi Gras out there embodying a character kind of outfits. And then people were just wearing what they usually wear, to any event. So it was really cool to see that, and everyone seemed to have a good time. So
That's excellent.
good.
Come in and express yourself the way you want.
Yeah.
Did you have any formal awards throughout the evening? What did it...
Entail.
Yes, that was the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
What did it all entail?
So no, we didn't. I feel like that's kind of Queen's Balls got that down.
Mm-hmm.
They do amazing at that. So we let them do that, what they do best. And, the committee did talk about things like that, like having some awards. But it was one of those things that just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we had to kind of pare it down to what people actually want to be there for and what's more entertaining. So we had like a DJ playing, and we got some local queer artists to come on and entertain. So we had 2 entertainment blocks. And we had Rebel Lyons, who's amazing, and she was teaching the crowd a dance. So that's how we opened the ball. So it got everyone up and participating, because she was showing you the dance moves,
That's cool.
like it wasn't something you had to come up with. So we've got some great photos of that, of the whole crowd just getting up there and doing the dance along with her. And so it was really cool to just give that platform to queer entertainers who don't often get that. And it was a really good time. Oh, and we had, we had a photo booth set up that was free, that just sent, the photos straight to your phone.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was just all night. People were just going back and forwards, taking pictures of this friendship group and that friendship group. And so it was really cool to see those photos at the end of the night. I don't know if everyone knew I would be able to see the photos at the end of the night.
There's some cheeky ones in there.
Yeah.
But that was great. And I think we're definitely going to have that next year, and potentially even have another one. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Did you feel like the queer ball was something that was really needed on the Sunshine Coast?
I feel like everything is just needed on the Sunshine Coast,
Right.
because we have the Mardi Gras, which has been running for a few years and is great. We have the Rainbow Festival, which is also amazing. But in between that, we've got our little social groups that do our things, but there's just not a lot. And especially in that realm of getting dressed up and, like a lot of queer events with weddings and stuff like that, like unless you're going to a queer wedding, you still have that expectation where even if you're an accepting family, there is still those kind of feelings that you have to perform a certain way or look a certain way. So I just really wanted to recreate that experience for people for either their formal or weddings and things, and just be able to go all out and look hot and get dressed up and have a good time.
Yeah. Anything positive that's entering someone's space is always going to leave something positive for them, because you even know what it's like in the queer space. Not every part of life that should be a celebration has been a positive step. So I guess you're kind of making that for someone. As you said, they can recreate a formal there. They could recreate a family get together, and it's kind of with your chosen family. And that's really nice.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the great thing, because even amongst an accepting family, like I have an accepting family, it is completely different to be surrounded by your people.
Yes.
And the amount of trans joy that was around, where people just could feel completely themselves and not have anyone not understand or anything like that. You could just be completely yourself and free. And it just felt like a really wholesome, good time. And I had a lot of feedback on the night of people like thanking me for putting it on. I had someone who couldn't actually tell their family where they were going. I had to kind of make up a story. And we had free mum hugs there.
So
we love
them. We love them.
To give that to have some parent figure give you a hug and be like, you look amazing.
Yeah.
Even if your own parents wouldn't think the same. That was really important to us as well.
Yeah, super important. Speaking of important things, what goes into putting something like this on in your community?
What are the steps?
Well, it started with a grant. We thought, we'll just throw our hat in the ring and apply for a grant. So that was a lot of it, was applying for the grants initially. And honestly, if I didn't know how much work it was going to be, I don't know if I would have taken it on, which I'm glad I did know, because it happened. There was so much to organise. It ended up having over $20,000 budget just in hiring the performers and all of the shimmer wall and the photo booth and the decorations and everything that went into it. It was intense. So luckily I had a really good support. My partner is really good at that kind of stuff as well. So when they weren't studying, they were helping out. And yeah, so it was a lot of manpower, a lot of hours, a lot of phone calls, a lot of meetings, a lot of grant writing. But I wouldn't change it. Like I just made the most amazing friends through the process. And it was a really fun experience. And obviously I'm doing it again this year. So
yeah, which is awesome.
Amazing. And that's what I was going to say. Do you feel like, because I know sometimes we go through phases where we're like, oh, we've got all this work going on.
Yeah, when you mentioned
everything.
If you had known how much work it would be, you never would have done it. I'm like, Lauren and I say that weekly about this podcast.
But in the end result, do you feel like, because you had such positive feedback, it's that rewarding feeling afterwards that you're like, oh, thank goodness I went through all that hard work?
Yes, absolutely. And, our community is so lovely. Like on the Sunshine Coast, I do get told a lot, like we are tight knit, like we have to come together. Even when you go to a bar, sometimes it still can be a little bit impersonal at times. And so we do have a beautiful community. And so many people came up to me and were so grateful, like the gratitude for like the effort that I put in was great. And to hear people's stories, I talked to some of our trans women afterwards about it, and they were just so grateful for that experience. Like queer people in general, but specifically trans people, to be able to be just be in a space like that and have a good time. It was really good. And I feel like I said, it brought the community together. We had a great committee, and like I've made lifelong friends through the process. So yeah.
Did you feel like there were enough resources on the Sunshine Coast for you to put this together, or did you have to reach wider for, say, your photo booth and for your performers, or were they all in that tight-knit community space?
Most of it I was able to source pretty close to home. And it was actually kind of important to me to do that because we don't have as many opportunities on the Sunshine Coast. So where possible, I used queer vendors. We did have a few people from Brisbane. We had Selma Sol because she's amazing. But yeah, no one further than Brisbane. Yeah, most of it was pretty local. Yeah.
That's really good.
That's cool. How do you feel that the Sunshine Coast goes up against major cities in terms of progression and acceptance?
The Sunshine Coast is quite a conservative place. Like I'm always disappointed by
something
when the votes come out. With the elections, I'm always like, okay,
I think
guys,
we're all, yeah, we're all like that.
But Queensland, right?
Yeah.
I know that it's a conservative place. I've not experienced much homophobia myself. Me and my partner are very touchy-feely. We don't make apologies. We are very out and proud, and I've never come across anything that would make me feel uncomfortable, but I have had friends that do, in specific pockets. So that's just my personal experience. So I kind of guess that maybe they're thinking it but not saying it.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, is better.
Yeah, I would prefer that.
Yeah, I'd rather people keep their opinions to themselves, especially if they're shit.
Well, that's what it is. Yeah. If your mother, your mother always teach you not to say?
Yeah,
nice
if you can't say something nice,
don't say it at all.
At all. Yeah,
that's what I meant to say.
At least some people are taking that advice, then maybe.
Yeah, but I mean, like we do have quite a big queer community. Like our specific Facebook group, which is only for queer women and trans people, it's got 650 odd members.
Wow.
We sold 431 tickets to the ball in our first year.
Wow.
Like we have
Good job.
quite a lot of us around. So that helps. And I live near the university. So like it does feel like there are queer people everywhere here. And also, like, I surround myself with queer people. I run the social group and pretty much all my friends are queer. So the one thing I have come across is because I also homeschool my children, that can be quite a conservative / conspiracy-based community. And once I came out as non-binary, I didn't feel safe in that community anymore because of their beliefs surrounding agendas and things like that.
Yeah.
So that was quite difficult to like be part of a community and then all of a sudden feel like you're not welcome anymore. But I just get around that by making my own groups. I'm developed a teen group meet that is all of the questions are like, this is LGBTQ safe space. If you have a problem with that, don't join, basically.
Yeah.
So you just got to find your people.
Yeah, and
find
create
your tribe.
And create safe space for yourself and for those around you, which is so important because I feel like some of our heterosexual counterparts that we know could learn a few lessons in doing those things when they are allies. It is all about creating safe space and letting people know that you are a safe person. So anybody listening who is just on the border of the queer community, learn something.
Yep.
What was your favorite thing about putting together Queer Ball?
I think it was the people. I just really met some beautiful people, and lifelong friends. Like we hired DJ Crocky because we loved what he did, and he's become one of my closest friends. He's just a solid gold human. So it's things like that that was probably my absolute favorite part of it.
Awesome.
What was the most challenging thing, and did you guys face any backlash? Oh, the deep breath. The deep breath is happening, everybody.
Yeah. Look, there was some minor backlash with our ads and stuff like that, but that was pretty minor. And, we just deleted any negative comments and that. So as far as like homophobic backlash, not really.
Well, that's
We're
good.
pretty lucky.
Yeah, that's really
regard.
good.
It was mostly on our paid ads. We got a couple of things, but we know those people exist and we just delete their comments and pretend like it never happened. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Shame you can't just delete them.
Yeah.
See ya.
I think the joke that's on them is if you are looking up specific things, that's why the targeted ads are going to you.
Yeah, it's so funny. We get so many comments on TikTok that's like, what's this bullshit, blah, blah, blah. And I always send back, well, your algorithm, mate. Like,
Yeah.
it knows
the
what
one
you're looking up.
Yeah, exactly. They don't like lesbians until their search history comes up. Right?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have any fear when putting the event on that you thought something could come out of it?
Yeah, like we did choose our venue very intentionally. Like in our committee meetings, we spoke about it because, we could have chosen somewhere prominent like Ocean Street that have got some pubs and clubs and stuff. But we were sort of saying like walking through Ocean Street dressed in queer formal style is probably going to be a barrier for people. Like I know I would feel uncomfortable. So we chose somewhere that's like the Banana Bender pub's got like a massive car park of its own and they're a very safe venue. So I knew that their security would look after us.
Yeah.
And private property. So if anyone tried to do anything, they can't just mill around and cause trouble.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we tried to think about those kind of things to keep people safe.
Also, Banana Bender kind of teams with the theme, don't you think?
Yeah.
That was intentional.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we've spoken a bit about the Sunshine Queer Ball, and I know that we're both super excited that it's continuing tradition now, I guess.
Yeah, Lauren and I might actually have to make the drive up.
Yeah, we'll have to come this time.
We got a Friday last year, which was hard for the out-of-town people because, coming home from work, getting all dolled up, it was a lot. So this year we've got a Saturday.
Woo!
So no excuses, Brisbane.
Yeah, you heard that first. No excuses, Brisbane.
We'll talk about dates and days towards the end so that it's clear in everyone's mind.
But as we were speaking about that, we do a thing with all our guests, if you've seen our podcasts before or listened to it, where we rewind and tell your story now. So what can you tell us about your own queer journey and where did it all begin?
Well, I was one of those people that had no idea I was queer at all. I remember thinking I might have a crush on a friend when I was like 15 or so. And then I just forgot about it. I ended up meeting my ex-husband when I was 15 and we were together for 18 years. So I was married at 20, first child at 23. I just had my head down doing the thing, I come from an accepting family. My best friend at high school was a gay man. So I had no reason to bury it or to try not to be queer. I just didn't know I was.
Yeah.
Until I was about 35 and I met a friend and we got very close very quickly. And I felt like I was going insane. I was like, what is happening? I don't know. Like I didn't want to admit that I was queer because I was happily married. But we would joke. We would call it my lesbian demon because I said, like, I feel like I'm possessed by a lesbian demon. I feel like I have no control over this. And it just kind of became a bit of a joke of the time. But there were parts of it that were very much not funny. Like I literally felt crazy.
Wow. Hearing someone who's come out later in life, it's such a opposing thing because I feel like I knew I was queer when I was like 10. I had the biggest crush on this girl in my class when I was 10. And I feel like at 10 years old, I knew what it was, but
you didn't understand it.
It was
though.
that thing that wasn't spoken about. So you kind of knew, oh, well, I don't know if this is going to go anywhere because I don't see anyone else doing it,
Yeah.
And then that like polarizing experience for you to like have no inhibitions about being queer and just not thinking about it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Stories like yours are the ones that I heard. Like I always knew. The queer boys that I knew from school, people knew they were queer before they came out because they were just flaming.
Yeah.
And I look back in hindsight over my life and I'm like, I was always queer. But because of compet, I would be like, oh, that girl that I sit next to in chemistry, I just really admire her.
Yeah.
How I explained it to myself, even though I'd have a flutter if she sat next to me. And anything I felt for boys or men was assumed to be attraction, because that was just what the assumption was. So I look back and I go, okay, it was always there. I remember watching The Craft when I was a teenager, and that scene when Neve Campbell gets her, her back gets revealed and there's no scars on it and stuff. I'm like, oh, I remember that scene.
Neve Campbell's come up quite a lot on this podcast.
She has. She has. I've actually seen The Craft.
So it's really interesting. And I think that really put me back in accepting it about myself, because I'm like, no, people know this. And why now? Like, why have I never been attracted to a woman until now? Well, I thought. But also I didn't know anything about demisexuality. And I think it's because me and this friend got really close that then it's like a switch flicked on and I was seeing the world for the first time. It was really daunting to go through that kind of puberty almost when you're in your 30s.
Also, do you feel like there's always been that stigma around men and women not being able to be friends without there being something more? Did that fuel kind of that thought of attraction towards men as well?
Yeah. So one of my first crushes was my best friend Brady from high school, who was gay. I feel like we got really close, and then there is that assumption like this is attraction because we were best friends and did everything together. Yeah, there was that assumption that that's what it meant, that we were in love with each other.
Yeah.
And like just meeting someone so young and just being with them for that long, like I wasn't looking at anyone, male or female. I was just raising my kids. And
And then on the opposite side of the coin to that question is, because you were listening to everyone else's stories going, I always knew, did that make you feel that maybe you weren't queer because you didn't always know?
Oh, yeah, like absolutely. And it drove me mad because I don't like not knowing things. Like I did better at school with like science and maths where there was like a definitive answer. I didn't like English where you could just argue anything. I don't like that. I like it. Answer 7, but I can deal with that. So I'd be saying to my psychologist, what's going on here? Am I queer? And even for a while, I even convinced myself that I hadn't fallen in love with this friend and that it was just a blip, and it was the whole situation that just caused some weird feelings. And it's interesting too to feel that intensely and call it your lesbian demon, but still be like, no, that's not what I am.
Did you feel like that was a layer of protection you were giving yourself, as opposed to like completely opening yourself up to this possibility and this opportunity that your life is going to actually change like massively? Yeah,
well, I mean, being a homeschooling parent is terrifying, to be a single homeschooling parent.
Yeah.
I had been with my partner since I was 15. To admit that I was queer was to blow up my entire life. Blow up my marriage, go it alone. I didn't know if my kids would end up in school. My daughter was 10 then and had never been to school. So all of those things were so terrifying that I think I really resisted it and was just like, no, this isn't it. I can just stay in this marriage and it's fine. Yeah, so I think that really played into it. It was inconvenient for me at the time.
Yeah. Is it ever convenient to be queer? Like, we love it.
We just had this conversation.
Yeah, we'll also get to that question later.
Yeah.
So you spoke about Neve Campbell being a little bit eye-opening.
Such a great segue.
Yeah, totally. But what do you feel representation looked like for you growing up?
There wasn't, like even at school, right, we had gay boys and I'm sure we had lesbians, but it was an insult to being a lesbian. No one was out at my high school. The representation in media in the 90s was like, there would be the real butch types that were portrayed as like rough and unkind almost. And then there's kind of like the other, for the male gays, lesbians, they're not even queer. They're just doing something to titillate men.
Yeah.
So having that representation of more masculine people, non-binary people, queer-looking people, there wasn't a lot of that. So I feel like, Kirstie Alley,
oh, yeah.
There's a little bit of an edge to her. I was always watching her movies over and over again, not realizing why. But yeah, as far as, it's not until now when we see, shows like Orange is the New Black and things like that, where you get that whole spectrum.
Yeah.
Like my partner is non-binary as well, more androgynous, and there wasn't a lot of that.
What do you wish you had as a queer person growing up that may or may not still exist now?
I feel like it's the representation that I just spoke about, because there really wasn't any. I didn't know any lesbians in real life. I think the first one I met was right before I met this friend that I fell in love with as an actual person. It was so hidden.
Yeah.
And I guess because in my mind, the representation you do get is very butch, right? So unless someone looks butch, you don't know they're queer. Whereas actually a lot of queer people don't look that way. So I would pass lesbians every day in the street and not know that they were lesbians because, Hollywood told me that they all had short haircuts and neck tattoos.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I love short haircuts and neck tattoos. Don't get me wrong. Love that. But yeah, it was very specific. So I love that now it's more broad. I love that my daughter's got a lot of queer friends, and I love that, they're experimenting with pronouns and haircuts, and it's just not a thing for them. They just get it so easily. My daughter's 15, and if I misgender someone, she's the first one to pick it up because it just comes a lot more easy for them.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I think that's really beautiful in that the younger generation are able to be so much more accepting. And I guess it's the fact that we're all out here doing these things and providing this education and this safe space to help.
Well, we talked about loosely in the beginning, people thinking everybody has an agenda, when it's like, well, we're the ones raising our kids to be more accepting of other people, and you're the ones raising your kids to be more hateful.
I was going to say,
so who's got the agenda?
Hate is taught.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I can see why they're threatened by it. So one of the homeschoolers told me that non-binariness was a social contagion.
What? Oh, sure. As opposed to gender being a social construct.
Right. And I'm just like, well, who cares if they try it on? Who cares if they do it because their friend is doing it? If they're not non-binary, it'll wash off. They've been trying to convert queer people to be straight since the beginning of time, and they haven't been able to eradicate us. Like, it's not that easy to sway someone's sexuality. If they're easily swayed, it's because they are.
Yeah. It's the same as I had all these goth friends in high school that now wear pink. You can go on a journey and eventually find yourself, no matter what that looks like for you.
It's called self-discovery.
Yeah. Speaking of, great segue, Lauren. I wanted to ask you, when did you start identifying as non-binary, and how did that journey look for you?
So once I finally landed on, yes, I'm queer, I get it. I knew there was some gender stuff there, but I was just like, one thing at a time, let's just sort it out later. So it wasn't until I met my partner, Natalia, and they're just so beautiful and accepting of me exactly how I am, that I was able to explore that, because I knew that I didn't have to fit a certain role. I didn't have to be anything other than completely what I am. So once I'd settled into that relationship and settled into my queerness, I was like, okay, we need to explore this. And I had a real period of grief about it because, I don't know anyone that joins the trans team. Yay.
Yeah.
This is a fun team to be on right now because, everyone has got eyes on you and thinking that you're part of an agenda. So it was really hard to come to that realization that that is me, and that I've always had dysphoria about my chest, because I had my daughter when I was 23. And I remember saying to my partner, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to breastfeed. Nobody touches these. That's, it was always a no-go zone. And it was fine biologically. I could breastfeed my children in the end. But yeah, so that dysphoria had been there since even, I had no idea what dysphoria was when I was straight. So once I knew that, then I'm like, okay, well, now I'm on the surgery path and all that kind of thing. So I had my moment, and I had my tears and my dark times, and, I've got non-binary friends, I've got trans friends, I've got an amazing partner and so much support around me that, eventually I could settle into it and just come to the joy part of it. And, I had my surgery last year as well in the middle of organising the ball.
Wow. Busy.
You love the challenge.
Right. So, yeah. So it's all been good.
Yeah. As long as...
Well, no, it hasn't. But
I know what you mean. But as long as the journey is one to your happiness, then the road is worth taking, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I just feel for other trans youth, because I was surrounded by acceptance, and it was still a dark time. And so that's what frustrates me about people not realizing that even just talking about agendas and things like that, how much you can affect somebody at a time when they're struggling themselves. It is just so important. It's life-saving to be kind to people. And whether you understand it or not, it doesn't affect you. It really doesn't.
Yeah. I think as well, one of the big myths that we get taught as kids is the sticks and stones song and the words won't hurt. But ultimately, words can cut you like a knife, and people don't take into consideration how damaging what you can say to somebody can be on their entire being.
Yep.
And I think what we could all take away from anything these days is to just be a little bit kinder to strangers, to people who might be struggling. Nobody knows what anyone else is going through. I think talking again about creating safe space, that's for everybody. And I don't see why people are so hard up on giving people a hard time about things that don't concern them in the slightest.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like it's mostly the people of most privilege in society that don't understand how these things add up.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just one comment or liking, it adds up. And it's funny you say that because we did this massive thing with the ball this year and it took so much time and effort. But one of the biggest impacts we had was there's a guy that works at our local Woolies and, you know, he was wearing all the rainbow lanyards and, you know, we just make sure to go through his checkout and be like, hey, you coming to Mardi Gras? Hey, you coming to the queer ball? And he has found his community now and he's like credits us for talking to him, you know, and making him feel welcome, like there is community because he came from out west where it wasn't accepted. So for us to just treat him like family made this massive impact on his life. And it's kind of feels ridiculous to me because I'm like, that was just us going to Woolies to grab something for dinner. Like that didn't feel like anything major, but just by talking to him.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to do that more. You know, like it's hard to put yourself out there. Like I'm outgoing but introverted,
Yeah.
you know, so sometimes you see another queer person and you want to say something, but you get a little bit nervous, but it's sometimes worth reaching out and just saying something and making people feel like they're not alone.
Well, yeah.
Like we have 650 odd members of our social group and the same 20 people usually turn up to events. But I feel like some people just need to know that it's out there. Maybe they never show up to events, but maybe it just helps them feel less alone. They can see what people are doing. They know it's there if they need it. I'm happy for people to join the group and just use it like that.
Yeah.
I think that's really important, and that small act of kindness really helped that one person. So that's incredible.
Yeah.
How do you think having a queer ball like your Sunshine Coast ball would have changed your own queer journey?
Yeah, I mean...
You might not have gone.
Yeah.
Well, back then I didn't know, but yeah, I do remember my school formal and I just know in myself I didn't want to wear the dress. I didn't want to play that game. Other girls were getting really snitchy about you can't wear this colour, I'm wearing that colour, and I didn't want to play any of that game. So I ended up wearing something a little bit different, which wasn't like I would have loved to wear a suit. I think I would have felt really myself in a suit. But I didn't actually think of that at the time. Like it just didn't occur to me. So yeah, I feel like it is so important because, you know, for the rest of the kids, they get that experience, this coming of age and hanging out with their friends and feeling beautiful and grown up for the first time, you know?
Yeah.
And some people came to the queer ball and they're in their 60s and they're getting that for the first time. So yeah, I feel like it would have been awesome to be able to be a teenager and run amok in that situation, feeling like yourself.
Yeah.
How do you hope that the queer ball helps others on their journey?
So one of our biggest things was we wanted people to feel comfortable. We wanted it to feel warm. We didn't want it to feel formal and stuff. We did away with the tables and the award ceremonies and the speeches and things. We wanted it to feel comfortable. So I made sure with the social media to try to put my face on it and be raw and real with people because I'm not perfect. And, you know, I'm worried about the things I'm wearing where it's going to fit right or worrying about my outfit or trying to give people social things to go to before the ball in case I didn't know anybody. We had greeters at the ball. So if people were coming in and they didn't know anybody, they'd be able to introduce them to someone and say, hey, this is such and such, and introduce them so they knew someone straight off the bat. And we got a lot of positive feedback on that, on how kind and warm it felt. And that was so important to us because that is one of my main things is I want people to feel safe and happy and accepted. And I didn't want there to be anyone worried about how they look or anything like that. So, yeah.
I feel like mainstream events could literally take a leaf out of your book.
Yeah.
Because I feel like other events you go to don't have that kind of
It's warmth.
care.
It's a warmth energy.
Yeah.
That's what I was feeling.
And, you know, there are people everywhere that we were saying before experience isolation, need community and don't know where to turn, and maybe they show up by themselves. How much different would it be for them to meet someone at the door that takes them in, you know? That's things you don't think about, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I remember talking to one guy and he was standing at, we had these tables that all glowed different colours, which I loved. And he's just standing at one of these bar tables by himself. And I went up to him and introduced myself and I said, do you know anyone? And he said, no. And I said, do you want to meet some people or is that terrifying? And he said, that is terrifying. And I'm like, okay, like it's cool to do that. But at the same time, some people they're not into that.
Yeah.
They don't want to be introduced to someone random. They'd rather just people watch or make a genuine connection, which is also fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, that made me laugh.
At least you weren't there with your clipboard being like, what's your star sign? I'll match you up with someone.
It's not a reality dating show.
I'm a Capricorn, so I'm not really into star signs.
Oh. That makes so much sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Zoe, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us. Before we let you go, we've been asking all our guests for 2025 this kind of loaded question. Do you like being queer?
Oh my God, I love being queer.
Yay.
There's a bit of, discourse in the non-binary community. Like if I was born in a male body, would I still be non-binary? Which is a question to ponder. It's kind of like, would I? And then I'm like, well, I'd just be some straight guy.
How boring.
Were you like, ew?
No, I absolutely love it. Like my partner does drag and all of our friends are so colorful and they have such interesting stories. And I feel like people need community and it's such a handy thing to bring you together. I think that's how people end up in churches because they have that feeling of community and belonging. And I just freaking love our community. I just love how much neurodivergence there is and we just get together and,
And that's how the queer church started. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I love how colorful it is. I love being able to express myself and have no one expect anything of me. Like I'm non-binary. I can wear a skirt or pants. I can sing Peach PRC or some like hardcore rock. Like there's no rules. I can just be exactly who I want to be. So I wouldn't be straight for the world.
That's an
Love
awesome
that.
answer.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
Well, before we go, do you want to give us the rundown on when the Queer Ball at the Sunshine Coast is going to be this year? And everyone who might be up Sunshine Coast Way or in Brisbane, if you want to go, can jot it down in their diary.
So 6th of September this year, so it is a Saturday. So it'll be at the Banana Bender pub. Again, they put on a great venue. We are expecting to sell out this year based on the tickets we sold last year. So
get in early. So as soon as tickets are available, Zoe's telling you to get on and get your tickets because if you wait, you might not get in.
You'll miss out.
You will miss out.
Absolutely. Follow our social media and then you'll know when the tickets are available.
That's true.
We'll put all of your tags in the show notes for everyone to be able to follow. But thank you so much for your time. We hope everybody has enjoyed this week and enjoyed listening from Zoe and their journey that they've shared with us. Until next week.
I guess you better remember to
stay gay, motherfuckers.
Woo!
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.